Small groups. It's nice. A little bit more intimate.
Wow. Did you leave and come back, or you continue to stay?
Today is a good day to be patient. Settle into Actually, I'm not waiting. I'm not sure.
Do you want me to?
No, I don't have to wait. Being patient instead. I spent the past week in California, and in particular, I was in a part of California which is often referred to as Silicon Valley. Some of you have heard of Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is the part of the world where Google and Sun and Cisco and Yahoo and about 10,000 wannabes of those companies are stationed. So there are a lot of people who want to become there's a technical term out there called a unicorn. How many of you know that term, unicorn? Okay, so not too many. Well, you've heard of Google. You haven't heard of the thousands of companies that are not Google, that died instead of becoming Google. The vast majority of startups just passed away without anyone ever hearing of them. And then a very few succeed enormously and grow to enormous companies like Google, and those companies are called unicorns. Very special, I guess, is the meaning of unicorn. In Silicon Valley, people work really hard. Everybody works hard, and everybody works all the time. Who here has lived there at all? No one except me has lived there. You were there. Isn't it true that people work quite a bit?
Yes.
Everybody goes there to work. Everybody goes there, first of all. That's important to note. Very few people are from there. But a lot of people go there and work really hard. And We work a little bit hard at the monastery, little bit. You know, we only sleep about 6 hours a night, and we typically have a schedule for, I don't know how much of the day is scheduled, at least 12 hours, 12, 14 hours a day is scheduled. So it's sort of a lot, but out there it's much more than that. They're working all the time. And they're working all the time because they have to go really fast, because the faster you go, the higher your likelihood is of success. So they're always rushing. And I was giving a meditation guidance to a group while I was out there. That was one of the things I did. Gave a few guidances, led a few meditation sessions, and a woman gave a very nice report, I thought. She said, you know, I enter a certain practice, and at the end of it, things still aren't the way I want them to be. You know, it's half an hour, and things still aren't the way I want them to be. I said, okay, well, that's good. How do you want things to be? She said, well, I want everyone to be happy and kind. And after half an hour of meditation, it's still the case that there are people who are not happy and kind. Well, now, this is the sort of thing someone would say in Silicon Valley. Isn't that an amazing thing to say? There's such a sense of hope out there. I guess you could call it optimistic, maybe. You know, positive thinking. It was pretty good. Okay. Well, there are a number of things that we can work with here. A number of different directions we can go with this, and we did go in a lot of those directions. But there's something I want to say first. And the first thing I want to say is that Shinzen, at one point at a retreat, said something that was very helpful for me, so I'd like to repeat that. He said, when you practice mindfulness, your relationship with time changes. Without mindfulness, without this practice, time is basically your enemy. Basically, time is the problem. If you have something that you don't like, then you have to endure it for some period of time. And for that reason, time is bad. All of that time that you have to spend enduring that thing you don't like is bad, so time is bad. If you have something you do like, then time is what will take that away from you. Soon enough, time will take that away from you. And so time is just bad. The present time is bad, and the future is bad, and everything's bad, and time is basically an enemy. But with this practice, whatever this practice is for a certain person, time becomes our ally. Time becomes the thing that brings us closer and closer to happiness and kindness. And as we practice that, the world comes closer to happiness and kindness, unconditional happiness, unconditional kindness. And since time is the very thing that allows the process to unfold, that brings us in that direction, and since as long as we're doing this practice, we're definitely going in that direction, time is our ally. Time is just good. The more time passes, the better. It's just great. There's nothing better than time. And I'd add to that the thing about time is that if change is your enemy, then you have a huge problem, because time wins in the end. But if time is your ally, then you have a lot to rejoice about, because time wins in the end. So it was interesting. I talked about that, and then I went into a few different techniques to actually work with that. And the next day I talked to someone who had been at that session. And it was so interesting. I really appreciate it. I often say, it's okay to say this on camera, that I consider California in general and Silicon Valley in particular to be a culture of teenagers. It's a teenage culture. You know, people with, it's okay. It's good, actually. Being a teen is good in many ways. It doesn't mean that time is also good, right? So both are good. It's good to be a teenager, and it's good to not be a teenager. Anyway, they're teenagers there, which is to say that they're idealistic, simple-minded, immature. They're totally controlled by absurd desires. This is fine. It's actually fine. It's because of that. The good news about that is that it's the perfect situation to break through. I like to work with, in terms of this path. I actually like to work with teens more than anyone else, because teens, in my experience, have both the highest likelihood of making a major breakthrough, and also have the most leverage in their life after they make such a breakthrough. So an adult can make that breakthrough, and then what comes next? Working through patterns that you developed for the past few decades that are not in accordance with that realization, but you still have to work through all that momentum anyway, and then you die. So being a teenager is sort of nice because you have a breakthrough, and then you get to create all those patterns of your life in accordance with that insight. So it's very good. Plus, you're more likely to have an insight, and so it's very good. But there also is a maturity that comes with being older, and that they don't have in Silicon Valley. So the next day I talked to someone, and he was just, I don't know if he was livid or just confused at the idea that time could be an ally. He repeated the same arguments back that I had already made. He said, "You don't understand. I suffer, and every moment I suffer is bad. And so time is bad. And furthermore, I have all the stuff I want to achieve with my life, and I probably am not going to achieve it. I'm going to die instead. So time is bad." And it was so interesting to talk to him, because we went back and forth on this. I tried to explain it again, and he gets it. "I don't think you understand." And time is the enemy. Time is the problem. And I think it's reasonable that one feel that way if you've been working in that. Time really is very frightening. You know, you have one team who works on a project and finishes it in 470 days, and another team works on it and finishes it in 472 days. And one of them is then billionaires, and the other one is then out of work. Right? So you can see, it's very clear how it feels that way. And it's important, I think the point he's making, which I wish we here in New England could hear more, because I think it's something that we're missing. What he's saying, and it's something that especially people who know me well hear me teach this way, I'm talking this way because we're a little bit of a small group, so it's a little bit more intimate. Something I don't talk about as much unless we're in a more intimate setting is the significance of urgency. Don't I talk about urgency sometimes? So there's a need for urgency, an understanding of the point he's making, that there isn't time to waste. We cannot waste time. Time is precious. But for time to be precious and for time to be a problem are two different things. Time can be precious and wonderful. Time doesn't need to be precious and therefore bad, therefore the enemy. For time to be precious actually means it's not the enemy. It's precious instead. And so it's important for us, I think, to not settle into our, ossified New England attitudes. And just think, well, things aren't that good and it's just going to be that way. And what can you do? It's nice to have a little bit of this. I'm going to sit for half an hour, even maybe an hour. By the end of that time, I want everyone in my life to be happy and kind. That's sort of nice. Wouldn't that be good if we had a little bit more of that here? But I think it's also good that we understand that also is indication that time, if that's possible, then that's possible still because of time. And so it's important for us to make use of each opportunity that comes to us. And in the write-up that we had, we talked about patience. And patience means we never have to wait. And in the write-up that we sent out, talked about one aspect of that. One aspect of that is that just now I thought I'd attempt to not be a hypocrite. And so I came up and sat down and everyone was talking and I just said, great, perfect. I'll be patient, which means I don't have to wait. Yes, I don't have to wait for anything. I'm just gonna sit here and practice. I did, and nothing to wait for. And then it came to be time and there was quiet and then the time came and I started talking. Nothing to wait for that whole time. There was always a practice to be done. And so sometimes we are driving and we're at a red light and we have to wait forever. Have you noticed how long it takes at a red light? It takes forever, doesn't it? It takes, I don't know how long. It feels like it takes half an hour, 45 minutes. Sitting there, it's a red light, never changes. Have you ever tried to do something in that amount of time? Today I was trying to find this, because I wanted to write a note on it, and there's a red light. I have plenty of time. And a red light takes 45 minutes to change, so and it's green suddenly. And here in Vermont, they beep right away. It turns, bam, they're gonna beep. We're not gonna wait 3 seconds. And so, oh boy, have to go. So anyway, usually it feels like the light is taking forever. Why does it feel like it takes 45 minutes for the light to change? Because we don't have anything to do. If you have something to do, like look for a piece of paper, suddenly there's time is passing very quickly. Well, there is something we can do. And I was teaching someone this, again, out in California, and she had a huge epiphany. And it was so simple. She was sitting at the light, and she was looking at it, and she thought, okay, maybe I'll do mindfulness now. Sounds radical, but I'm going to give it a try. That guy told me I should give this a try, so I'm going to give it a try. Well, she didn't know how to do mindfulness. I mean, she had to look. She's used to closing her eyes. She couldn't close her eyes. She was looking at the light. She said, okay, I'll just note the color of the light. It's red. And she looked at it. So it's still red, 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 red. And then it changed. And it changed to green. And she told me, this one, she said, I've never seen that green before. I've never looked at the green. The moment it turned green, I looked away and drove. She said, it's actually a very nice color of green. It's really pretty, she said. It's great. I looked at it and about 1 second because I didn't want people to beep, and then I drove. I was amazed. I still remember it, she said. And the way it's different, there's an amazing pattern in the light. It's just incredible, the pattern. It's amazing. And then she looked at me, because you start sounding crazy when you practice mindfulness, right? And so she looked at me, trying to affirm that I wasn't thinking she was crazy. She said, I know it sounds crazy, but it was really beautiful. She said, yeah, it's true. It can be like that. So there she had, I don't know how long it really takes for light to change, maybe 10 seconds. And she had 10 seconds to practice mindfulness. And it changed her day. Changed, I don't know, more than her day. Changed her life, really. Because it changes the way you see every experience in your life. You never have to wait. You can always practice mindfulness. There's always something you can do. And you can fit in micro hits of mindfulness again and again. And so that is, that's one aspect of this statement, that patience means we never have to wait. Why? Because you can always practice mindfulness. Whatever is happening, you can always practice mindfulness. You don't need to wait for any particular circumstance. That's incredible. Or put another way, the only thing you need to practice mindfulness is experience. And we're having an experience. We're always having experience, so that's all you need. Mindfulness treats all experiences the same. Well, that's very exciting. But there's actually an even deeper way of looking at this. And that is, as we practice mindfulness, we become attuned, we become aware of something that's happening that is more, this might sound strange, but it's okay. I was just talking about someone that said the green light was beautiful. So now I'm going to sound a little crazy for a second. We become aware of something that's more accurate than we are. I don't know if that makes any sense. We become aware of a wisdom, of a way that things are happening right now that's more accurate than the way we think things are happening. That's more accurate than the way we want things to happen. More accurate than our beliefs, our preferences, our opinions. We become attuned to that. We become connected to something that's more accurate than we are. Say it another way, each of us, we have models in our minds of what's happening. Those models are quite deep. They're intellectual models, of course, but just to look around the room, those visual impressions are models. Does that make sense? No, maybe this doesn't make sense. It seems as if we're actually looking at what's in front of us, but actually our minds filter and change what we see to make it into something similar but different. And interestingly, I think we can state with a lot of confidence that it's somewhat similar and somewhat different. I don't know how much confidence we have about how similar or how different, because we don't have another point of reference. We perceive. How accurate is perception? Well, we don't know. We only have perception to compare perception to. So our models in our minds, what we're seeing is something like what's happening, but it isn't what's happening. But it's like it, but it's different from it. With this practice, as we investigate, we can edge ourselves a bit further from the assumptions and preferences we carry into an experience that impact the accuracy, the validity of those models, and towards a greater sense of precision and clarity. As we do that, we become attuned to something that's happening that's more accurate than our model. So you could say more accurate than I am, more accurate than my opinions. Our opinions get debunked again and again and again. And in my experience, one of the great joys of this practice is the experience of my opinions getting proven incorrect again and again and again. That moment of realizing I'm wrong is the joyful moment in this practice for me, in my experience. That's what I do the practice for, that moment of realization. In other words, oh, I was way off. I wasn't seeing things the way they are at all. And then the next moment, of course, is the problem, because then you say, this is how it is. Now I see how it is. This is it. And then you go through the process until that gets stripped off of you. There's again a sense of freedom. So for me, being wrong and being free are actually the same experience. I think for most people, being wrong feels bad, but to me, it's liberating. I'm liberated from whatever I believed, which is the prison that I live in. So that liberation, that freedom is very satisfying. There's that experience. And in that experience, while it's dangerous to get to the point of grabbing on and saying, this is the truth, now I have the truth. Everyone who doesn't believe this is wrong. as opposed to that, there's also a direct experience of becoming attuned with what's happening. And as we become attuned, as opposed to grasping on, as we become attuned, there is an awareness of what is happening right now. There's a just happeningness. And we cannot we aren't we aren't out of harmony with that. The idea, here I am over here and all this other stuff is happening around me, that perspective falls off when we become more attuned with what's happening. And because of that, I am what's happening, which means that what's happening is what is happening. Oh, that's tough. This is tough. What's happening is what's happening. So this is what's happening. Here we are. And there's a wisdom in that in terms of what is to be done right now. So let me compare that to if we have a really clear idea of what should be happening. This is how things are supposed to be. When things are this way, then I will do this. I have this great idea. I'm going to do this. And in order for me to do it, things have to be this way. Then I have to wait for things to become that way before I can do that thing. Yes, a lot of people say this. People say this, all the time. When I have less to do, when I'm not as busy, I'll practice mindfulness. When things are that way, I'll do what needs to be done. When I don't have now I'm doing this, I have a lot to do. But when I don't have this to do, then I'll do this practice. Okay? I have a lot to do now. When I don't have so much to do, I'll take care of myself. But now I can't take care of myself or practice or be true to my integrity or follow my conscience or live the life that I dream of. Someday, when I'm a different person in a different place and everyone around me is the right way rather than the way they are, then I will, whatever it is, be true to myself. Someday, somewhere, some other person will do what I know is right. Isn't that what we're saying? Someday, somewhere, someone who isn't this person right here now will do what this person right here now knows is the right thing to do. There's that sense. That's an approach. If that breaks up and we attune with something, with what's actually with what's happening right now, which isn't some imaginary thing, it's the opposite of some imaginary thing, it's what's happening right now. This, right now, this chair is happening right now. A rug is happening right now. This talk is happening right now. The camera's happening right now. This is happening right now. This thing's happening right now. When we become attuned to that, then we can get swept up in that and we can do what has to be done right now. Because there's no longer a fixation on here I am, needing things to be a certain way so that I can do what I want to do. That's lost. And as we lose that, as we become deeply attuned, we become more and more aware of what has to be done right now. And it turns out that there is something that has to be done right now. There is. It's magnificent. There is something to be done right now. Whatever it is. Maybe it's that you need to take a breath right now. I don't know what it is for you. I can't tell you that. You have to become attuned. Each of us has that responsibility for ourselves. But in my experience, as I become more attuned, I'm aware, oh, this is what is to be done right now. And this is, and this is. And so there's never a need to wait for someone who's better than me, surrounded by people who are better than you, in a place that's better than this. There's no need for that in order to do what I need to do right now. There's no need to wait for all that. And in my experience, that idea, I need to, when I'm a better person in a better place with better people, then I will, whatever it is. That I find for many of us is very, very powerful. Now, if we see things that way, then time is the enemy. Partially because things aren't that way right now, and now is the only moment of time that we get access to. And furthermore, because time doesn't actually care about how we think things need to be in order for us to be true to ourselves. Time doesn't have that direct, isn't aiming for our preferred future. Time doesn't know about our preferred future. Time is happening and we're all creating it together, and each of us has a preferred future. And if we're grasping on like that, then it's a big battle. All of us are fighting over the future. But if we're present in that way, harmonizing, then time becomes our ally, and because of that, everyone who we're in contact with becomes our ally. So these points, patience means that we don't have to wait, because at this moment we can do mindfulness. And then at this moment, as we do mindfulness, we become aware of the way things are. And as we direct our attention to the way things are, as opposed to, if our attention is directed towards the way things are, as opposed to directed towards a comparison between the way we think things are and the way we think they should be, then we become aware of a deeper kind of wisdom than can exist in our opinions. And as we become aware of that, we have a different sense of what is to be done at this moment, which doesn't depend on things being different. There is something to be done right now that doesn't depend on things being different. Whatever that is, there is something that we can do right now. So maybe this has been just as confusing for you as it was for that man. But there we are. That's how it is. So let's explore that with some exercises. So find a nice comfortable position and we'll begin the period. Take a moment to straighten your back, lifting your head high, and settle in, relaxing your body. Be aware of your experience in the present moment. For now, nothing else is a part of this technique. those simple instructions, your present experience. And as you pay attention to your present experience, label it. Label it as something that you see or hear or feel. So as I breathe, notice that I'm breathing. I feel that. And I label that feeling. Feeling. As I heard someone come in the front door, I heard the handle turn, door open and close. Labeled that hearing. Hearing. Each of these sounds, hearing. 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 And as those sounds occurred, images came into my mind. I saw the door open in my mind. And so I labeled that seeing. I imagined someone walking. Seeing. Seeing. And I consider, what will I say next? As I give this guidance and different words come into my mind. I hear those words in my mind and I label that hearing. Hearing. All of those thoughts. Hearing. I hear these thoughts. And sometimes those thoughts make a lot of sense. I clearly understand. And so I feel good. And sometimes they don't make much sense or they make me feel bad. Either way, if I feel good or bad, that's feeling. That's something that I feel. And so whatever experiences are coming, I label that seeing or hearing or feeling. Inside or outside, pleasant or unpleasant. Stable or changing, nonetheless, I can label that seeing or hearing or feeling. And so maintain those labels very clearly. There's no need to wait. There's no need to wait. This next experience is coming to you right now. And the next is coming right now. And the next is coming right now. There's no need to wait for the right experience to come. This experience has come. This experience. Seeing. Seeing. Feeling. Seeing. Hearing. 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 Seeing. Feeling. Just like that. Keep the rhythm regular, gentle, consistent, and clear. All we do is maintain the labels. Time does the rest. Time does the rest. This exercise is designed to train us to be clear about this experience. Be clear about this experience. There's no need to be clear about what this experience should be. I'm simply clear about what this experience is. There's no need to wait for the time when the right experience comes. This experience has come. And so we're clear on it. We're clear on it. And that way we learn to trust time. Time is bringing us this next experience. Our job is to be clear. Are we seeing this experience? Or hearing it? Or feeling it? We don't distinguish between experiences in terms of good or bad. We attend to this experience as it is. Simply by labeling it, seeing, or hearing, or feeling. We're attending to this present experience. Clear on it. Seeing, hearing, feeling. If we're thinking about something that happened yesterday or may happen tomorrow, even if we're thinking about what we're supposed to be doing right now, in this present moment, we know that we're thinking. That's the present moment experience. And so we label that as something that we're seeing or probably hearing. We're hearing ourselves talk about something in our minds, or we're seeing images. That's fine. In this moment, we're seeing or hearing. We may notice that those thoughts make us feel a certain way. They may relax us. They may make us tight, happy or sad, hopeful or fearful. That's fine. That's feeling. And as we maintain this practice, we find that time passes. Time gives us experience after experience and takes away experience after experience. We trust that. We treat each experience with an attitude of total acceptance, of unconditional love. Allowing it to come to us and then pass away. Deeply trusting. If we're happy, we trust. Now is the time to be happy. If we're sad, we trust. Now is the time to be sad. If we're wise, we trust. Now is the time to be wise. If we're ignorant, we trust. Now is the time to be ignorant. If we're seeing something, now's the time to see. If we're hearing something, now's the time to hear. If we're feeling something, now's the time to feel. So this technique consists of attending to this present moment, clarifying this experience in terms of seeing, hearing, and feeling, accepting that experience fully, allowing it to come and go without resistance, trusting it. And as we do that, each next experience becomes a purification. Each next experience cleanses us and releases us. And we can taste that. We can sense that. Sensing that this practice is bringing us towards deeper happiness. A happiness that doesn't depend on any of those experiences. Doesn't depend on the absence of any of those experiences. A kindness that doesn't depend on any of those experiences. Doesn't depend on the absence of any of those experiences. We sense that process happening. And as we sense that process happening, we know for ourselves directly that time is our ally. That this practice plus time plus this practice is happiness and kindness. How much happiness and kindness? Depends only on how much time we've added to this practice. Sometimes pleasant experiences arise. Naturally, there's a happiness in that pleasant experience. But with this practice, that experience becomes a purification. And we observe time take that experience from us. And we allow it to go. In that moment, we've become independent of the dependence on that happiness. There's a sense of freedom. And there's a happiness in that. Pleasant experiences arise. In Chinese, the word for patience is a picture. It's a picture of a heart with a sword in it. Sometimes as we sit here in our hearts, a sword is found. An unpleasant experience arises, a memory, something in the past, concern for something in the future. Unpleasant experiences sometimes arise. Sometimes we feel like there's a sword in our heart right now. Patience means that we accept that experience. That's what's to be done right now. Not to wait for that experience to go away. That's not patience. Patience is to accept that experience right now. To fully accept that experience and know that the more fully we accept it, the more fully it will pass away. But accepting it is purification from the resistance that causes suffering. We accept that experience just as it is. That's what's to be done right now. And then we find that time takes that away also. But this time, it's purified. And we begin to anticipate that purification, the happiness of that purification. Even while the sword is still in our heart, we know that time, the process that gave rise to that experience, is exactly the same process that will take that experience away. The question for us is, will that experience be something we resist, making time into our enemy, or something that we accept, making time into our ally, time into the force that purifies us? The mysterious process that frees us. Of course, we can imagine being free. But unless we have truly experienced this experience with unconditional trust, that freedom is just one more imaginary notion that we're clinging to. And as you sit, having become increasingly attuned with what's happening right now, having done this good work, harmonizing our minds, aligning our minds with what's happening right now. Stay in that and ask, what can I do right now, at this moment, to be of service to the world? What can I do right now at this moment? Not waiting to become a better person with more understanding or more love or more power. This person. And not waiting to be in some other place. There will be something else to do then. Not waiting for some later time. But right now, what can I do right now to serve the world, to be of benefit to life? And do it right now. Right now, in harmony with this moment. Not needing to go somewhere else or be someone else. Right here, right now. What can I do? To express my love for life. What can be done right now? In this situation, as it is. And pay attention to the answers that come. And know, each of those answers is another experience that we're seeing, hearing, feeling. Each of those answers is an experience that we attend to know just as it is and accept fully with deep trust. And then it passes away and we are purified of it. We either did or didn't take action according to that answer. And then we ask again. Ask the same question again. Receive an answer fully. In receiving it fully, we may act or we may not. And then it's gone. And we ask again. right now, right here. What can I do to be of service to this world? And please notice these answers. Do we need to come out of harmony, out of alignment, out of attunement with this moment in order to hear that answer? Is it an answer that's in accordance with this moment? We know the experience of being in attunement now, in alignment. And we know the experience of being fooled, deluded. The difference is in our minds. Staying in alignment, hear that answer. Know it. Trust it. And lose it. This is time. This is patience. the time for questions, comments, reports, anything at all. I have about a half an hour. And particularly, I think it's particularly helpful for the group when someone who's newer, hasn't been here before, hasn't been here very many times before, tells us about their experience. It's a gift to us.
I had a comment on what you were saying before about the freedom in being proven wrong, and kind of an observation of this constant kind of believing things and having beliefs proven wrong, and having that be liberated. And I think when I'm kind of tending towards half glass empty, kind of negative outlook on life, I find myself getting into this mindset of, well, if so far I've gotten everything proven wrong, why form any new opinions or beliefs at all? And that can kind of spiral into cynicism, I think. Why believe anything? Why trust anything? But then there's an optimistic side of that it's like, okay, well, I don't have to believe anything because it's, you know what I mean? There's two sides of that. So, I don't know, it's just a comment. I don't know exactly what the question is, but what's your feeling on kind of navigating that optimistic versus pessimistic viewpoint of that topic?
Yes. Have you heard of Diogenes?
No.
Interesting philosopher back in the old days. And he was known as a cynic. He was one of the cynics. Are you familiar with the cynic, the school of the cynics, Greek philosophy? Anyone? One person maybe? Oh, Diogenes was, what did you say? A cynic par excellence, what did you say? He was the supreme cynic. He was pretty well known. He was very clever. The school of the cynics lasted for quite a while, and ultimately, I suppose you'd say, succumbed to the definition of the word cynical that we have today. Suppose you'd say did do that, because here we are using the word that way. But originally the cynics were very joyful people. Diogenes certainly was joyful, and to the extent that he was subject to petty things like joy. He was a very interesting guy. He lived in a barrel. That was his house. People referred to him as just the dog, because he lived as a dog, more or less. He was nothing. He had nothing. Didn't seem to believe all that much. But he sure did question things. And one of my favorite stories about him, which is a great story, nice thing about these old-time folks is that their story is more important than anything else. We've made a person who we now get to relate to on purpose. So there was one time he lived outside because he wanted to be sure that he was subject to the heat and the cold. Otherwise, he might get comfortable. And if you're comfortable, then happiness is difficult, in his way of looking at it. So there he was, but he wasn't attached to being uncomfortable either. So it was been a chilly morning, warming up in the early afternoon, and so he was lying out in the sun. You know, why not? And the king came along, emperor actually, Alexander the Great, who at that point was certainly the most powerful person in that part of the world, and arguably the most powerful person in the world at that time. But anyway, certainly the most powerful person in that part of the world. And he had heard of Diogenes. He was somewhat famous as a philosopher because he questioned everything, just as you are saying. All the views, proved them wrong. Everything, and it was very difficult to be around him. People complained a lot about it. There was one person who was looking for someone, and Diogenes said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm looking for someone." He said, "Well, have you found yourself?" Well, no. So, well, why are you searching for someone else if you haven't even found yourself? Well, I'm just trying to find Diogenes. I'm just trying. Come on. What do you mean, come on? This is serious, right? And the conversation went on for hours. The guy couldn't get away from it. It was difficult. This is what he was like. Difficult person. So anyway, there he was sitting in the sunning himself. He was warming up in the nice sun, and Alexander the Great came along, heard about it, and said he felt so much respect for this philosopher. So he came up to him. He said, "I'm Alexander the Great. I can do anything, and I'd be happy to do anything for you. What would you like me to do for you? Out of respect for the integrity of your life, what can I do for you?" And Diogenes was still lying on the ground. He didn't move at all. And he just looked up at him and he said, "Can you move out of the sunlight?" So it was the one thing. Alexander said, I'll do one thing for you. That's the one thing. Move out of sunlight. Done. I don't want anything else. You know, he could have taken anything. He said, "I'd like grease. Can I have grease?" He promised him to give him whatever he asked for. Could have asked for anything, but he just said, "I'd like the sunlight right now. That's plenty for me, actually." So I think it's a useful story because the danger, or no, I'll tell another story that I'm an even bigger fan of. I love Diogenes, but there's another guy who had an even bigger impact on me. He lived in roughly the same time period, roughly the same part of the world, actually. A little bit to the east of Diogenes. So he's known as the Buddha. And someone went up to the Buddha once and said something I think similar to what you said. I can never remember his name. He was Shariputra's cousin, I think. Maybe brother. Diga, he was tall, so it was called Diga, which means long. Diga something, I forget his name, but he went to the Buddha and he said to the Buddha, "I reject all views." Yes? And the Buddha said, "Do you reject the view? I reject all views." And he said, "I think you win this one." He had nowhere to go. Stuck. And the danger, which I think is manifest in both stories, I actually see the same lesson being taught in both stories. Diogenes threw away everything. He threw away his home, he threw away his opinions, he threw away everything. The Buddha, I guess you'd say, also threw away everything, let go of everything. But we also let go of the habit of letting go. We also let go of the attachment to letting go. And we're left with something. For example, the sunshine. We're left with something. And the importance of the stories to me is that there's a wisdom. There's something that's happening in the sunshine. There's something that's happening that isn't merely a view, but which obviously is in accordance with views. Here we are, we're people who have views. The Buddha didn't say, have no views. He said, let go of all views, and that is right view. But there is somehow a view. There is right view, somehow. Somehow there is. We get to order up, you could say. It's something that we accept, just like the sunshine. We accept that. And so I think that the subtle danger is that we come to the conclusion, well, everything I ever thought was wrong. Therefore, I shouldn't have thoughts. Not noticing that that's a thought. Not noticing the hypocrisy in the moment. I shouldn't have any views. That's a view. Everything's always going to be wrong. Well, that's wrong. If that's true, then it's untrue. There's a wisdom there that doesn't fit into any sort of modeling, any fixed opinions, and yet which allows fixed opinions to arise as tools, as skillful means. So the issue is in not noticing. We do this method, see, hear, feel, seeing, hearing, feeling. We do that method, but then something arises which we don't treat the same way. Yes? So the thoughts are wrong, comes up, and we don't do hearing. Oh, that's it. It's just hearing. And yet, as we're hearing it truly, that doesn't mean we reject it either. And that point of neither grasping on nor rejecting allows something alive to happen, which I think so many of us human beings obstruct. We obstruct that rather than awakening to it. And so the joy in seeing, oh, this is wrong, isn't the joy in, that's why I talked about that, isn't the joy in coming to the conclusion this is wrong. The joy is in the moment of freedom from the fixation that was already there. That moment of freedom has something in it that's alive, has something in it that is wise, that is, you could say, true, that's right, that's beautiful. There's a sunshine there. There's something that's warming us. And the process of coming to that is the process that you're describing. But it's easy for that process to get hijacked by the belief that beliefs are wrong becoming the belief that we call right. In my experience, it isn't so much a matter of trying to get rid of things as a matter of letting go of things. These opinions, these views have a use. We wouldn't have them otherwise. They're useful. We can use them to do good things, to have good impacts, to make the world a better place. We can use them. When we're using them, they're very useful. But when we get stuck on them, when we're being used by them, then something shifts. So is this at all?
That was pretty good.
It was relevant to what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, they're useful stories from the old days. I like these stories. I like it. There was another one. It's really funny. A lot of those come up with the Buddha. Someone went to the Buddha and said, people shouldn't criticize each other. He said, you yourself are criticizing right now.
It's really fun. And it's so nice the way he said, the person, I forget his name as well, but he said, it's just as if a fisherman went out and rather than setting a hook, just grabbed the fish as it sprung out of the water. In the same way, you grabbed my mind just as it sprung out of my mouth. So nice. Very nice. Yeah.
My name is Daryl Williams, and I'm new to the group. Although the last time I was here, I listened to Anna, who's standing there, and was blown away.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, how unique, and I'm just blown away again.
Mm-hmm.
I never spent a more meaningful hour sitting there listening and experiencing. I feel a connection to CML. I've had my own spiritual quest.
Mm-hmm.
He gave a remarkable talk, and we share my son
Yeah.
here. And it's
He
like-
blows us away as well.
Yeah. Well, it means the world to me, and it's so cool to be here and share all this. I find staying in present time so helpful for me. I'm an eye surgeon, and the simple thought of stay with the eye, be with the eye, hold the eye, keeps me from that sensation of driving down the street and missing the turn. Oh, damn, gotta go back. Well, I ding up an eye, it's not that good. That simple focus lowers my complication rate.
Well done.
And I think that you're a unicorn.
There we are. We're pretty good. I think so.
You're riding that unicorn, and the wonderful thing is, I think we all can find our unicorn. I think every one of us has that chance to really hit it just right, balance what we have in life, and make it all happen with our spirituality as we evolve and ride that unicorn.
Thank you.
This is an idealistic Californian originally.
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciated what you had to say.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
An idealistic Californian who has moved to New England and
Yeah.
taken on and benefited from.
More darkness.
Yeah. The permission to be dark is really nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's often dark out here.
It is.
It's not bad. I like it.
And I more cross-pollination.
Yeah.
But I also
Yeah.
say that I think this is the first time I was conscious of the fact that I make mental images when I hear.
Oh, great. Great, good job.
And
That's great.
that I became very curious about that, and that brought a lot of joy.
That's great. That's great. That's very, very good. Things like that, from the outside, it can seem like nothing. You say, well, you saw a green light. Yeah, I've seen green lights. It's not that good. I don't know why you're so excited about seeing a green light. Or, yeah, you had a mental image. Right. I have mental images. From the outside, it can feel that way, but from the inside, I think the view is actually much more accurate. When we have the direct experience, we see how significant it is. And we get a glimpse of how, not just that, but how our minds construct the world that we experience. It's not just metaphorical, not, oh, mystical, distant, some kind of theoretical philosophy. Our minds we notice the moment of, oh, wow, I just constructed that experience. There was a mental image, which was there before, guiding my view on things, but I didn't notice that it was there, and also that it was produced, that it was constructed. So it's highly significant to have those experiences, to notice that clearly and crisply, and to see how important it is. And then we know there are many more layers of construction. And that mind that is constructed constructs the world. So it's highly significant, and it's very exciting to hear you talk about it. It's amazing to notice that. Notice that almost every sound we hear is accompanied by a mental image, even when our eyes are open. Even when our eyes are open. And oftentimes we see the image rather than what we see. Our eyes are open and we still see the mental image. That happens often, and it's very empowering to see that. It's wonderful that you mentioned it. Is that, was it as exciting as that?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's incredible to notice that. Incredible to notice that. And there are many more things like that. Many more things. One of the things that I hope people will attend to more, because people in this kind of setting, this demographic of people who would come to a Sunday evening meditation session, that's a demographic that tends, not that any one of you does this, but as a demographic, enough disclaimers?
Yes.
Okay, so not you personally, but statistically, some people probably maybe, thank you, could fight against thinking. Thinking, will you stop it? Go away. And what I often recommend, that is in my experience very useful, is to do what you just did with thinking in your, but the place to look is your body. So there was a sound, and then you noticed in visual space, there's an image. Sound, image, interesting. That's interesting. Wait a second, that's really interesting. And then you get to explore that. Try thought, body. What happens in your body at the moment a thought arises? It's very useful to explore that. Very, very useful to explore that. To notice what exactly happens at the moment that a thought arises. The moment, in the same way, sound, image. Oh, wow. If I hadn't been there for that, it could have passed. I could have looked a few seconds later and it wouldn't have been there. Does that make sense? I needed to be there for it. Same way, you have to be in your body at the moment a thought arises, and you notice what happens there. For most people, they relax. Most people relax at the moment that a thought arises. And that's the reason we think so much. The issue is that the thinking a few seconds later produces stress. So we want to relax. So we have another thought, and then we relax. But then that thought produces stress. So we need to relax. So we have another thought. That's the reason most people are stuck in thinking. That's the reason thinking is an addiction, because of its impact on our bodies. But most of us can't follow what's happening in our body. It just feels like a blur. Something's happening in my body. I don't know. Without noticing that it's those sensations that are driving the production of each next thought stream. But then it's the thought stream that does the same thing. And so to see that, to watch and see all of that's constructed, again, that's a very empowering experience. It's constructed. It's constructed. The degree to which the world that we live in is constructed is rarely appreciated. It's constructed. No matter how many times we call this the real world, it's still constructed. It's not that it's not real, but it is constructed. That has to be seen very clearly. Until we see that clearly, we attribute a stability that is not present And that can easily cause us to acquiesce to a status quo that's unjust. And that happens to us in a very subtle place in our minds, and for that reason, we're often debilitated and don't take action that is needed. So that's why I feel so strongly about it, that I see that point. The world is constructed as a fundamental point that has to be seen in order for us to fight effectively for justice, for social, environmental, individual justice. As long as this is just the way it is, then part of our mind says, well then, why would you? This is how it is. There's nothing you can do. But that part is often deeply subconscious. There is something we can do. In fact, right now, as we're having this experience, we're proving there's something we can do, because we are right now producing this experience in ways that most of us never see. So this moment becomes a direct evidence of the power of our minds versus direct evidence of our disempowerment. And that's a completely different approach to life. That's why I get so emphatic about it. Because as Bodhidharma Bhanteji, I worked on many issues of social justice in my life. The teacher who brought me into what you'd call engaged spirituality was a teacher in India named Bodhidharma Bhanteji. And he's primarily interested in issues of slavery. And there are a lot of issues of slavery, even though we might think that slavery is something of the past, it really isn't the case. And how much of a slave do you have to be a slave is unclear. For example, is there slavery in the United States today? A lot of people would say no, but I don't think that it's so simple as that. I don't think that you can answer no to that question personally. Other people disagree. But the point that he makes again, he says, all slavery is based on mental slavery. All slavery is based on mental slavery. And he'll repeat that. He said the only thing that's worth fighting against in terms of this is mental slavery, because people are mental slaves. There is slavery. Slavery is entirely in our minds, and it isn't just in the minds of slaves. We're all enslaved in a way, and so slavery happens. And none of us can do much about it. Why? Well, because we're enslaved. This is just how it is, and that's the slavery. And we live in that complacence often for decades. So it's why that's again why it matters to me so much, because I see what he does with his life, and I see the impact that it has, and I know that we all can do that. We have 2 minutes remaining. Do you want to say something for 2 minutes?
Maybe less. Most profound experience I had during this was when you said, when we went in near the end, you said, what is it I can do now, right here, to make this a better place, a better world? And anytime I do my meditation, I'm always like asking for opportunities. So once this opportunity comes, then I'll be able to do this. And this was the first time that I rapidly went through many scenarios of creating a better world in my mind and then expanding out. It was, I thank for that, because that was like, wow, I don't have to wait for anything. I was very patient. No kidding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing the green light.
Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you. Yes, Will, finish it off for us.
I'd like to quote Bob Marley. He said, emancipate yourself from mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our own minds.
Yeah.
I was singing that in my head.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I'm not going to say that.
Wonderful. All right. Pan?
Yes, the time has come.
The time has come. What can we do to make the world a better place this week?
What can we do? What can I do right now? I can tell you about some opportunities to make a difference in the world